Welcome, YouTubers, to another episode in my Grammar Hero series. In today's video, I'm going to be working out the practice problems from the third full-length practice test on my website. In case this is your first time finding my YouTube channel, I quickly want to mention that I created a small website recently called ASVABapp.com, and there you can take 3 short practice tests as well as 3 long practice tests, all of which estimate your AFQT score roughly. In order to get the most out of this video, I recommend that you either go to the website and take this practice test, or if you're going to watch this video on YouTube, you pause the video after I read each question, attempt to work out the question on your own, and then resume playing the video to check your solution. As a reminder, you're not permitted to use a calculator or a reference sheet on the ASVAB, so regardless of where you take this practice test, try not to make use of any of those resources. As usual, there's going to be timestamps in the description of this video. Each of those timestamps is going to be associated with a question, and next to the timestamp, there's going to be the topic that the question's testing, as well as a link to a video in which you can learn more about that topic. So if at any point you feel as if you need more help with a certain topic in this video, just check the description of this video, and there you'll find links to those additional resources. All that being said, let's go ahead and get started with today's video. All right, this first question says, a bicycle shop is selling a $500 bicycle with a discount of 10%. If the sales tax is 7%, how much will the bike cost in total? So in order to do this one, we're going to have to make 2 separate calculations. We're going to have to figure out what the bike cost minus the discount of 10%. And after that, we're going to have to take that discounted sales price and add tax onto it. So let's do each of these things one step at a time. So to find the sales price, we're going to take the original amount of the bicycle minus the original amount times the discount rate. And we have all this information in the problem. We know that the bike originally cost $500, so that's our original amount. Likewise, we know our discount rate is 10%, and we're always going to express that in decimal form, so it's going to be 0.1. By doing this arithmetic here, we'll figure out what our sales price is. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, the original amount or original cost of the bike was $500 minus, again, the original amount's $500 times the discount rate, which is 10%. So we're going to express it in decimal form as 0.1. I'm going to work this off to the side in case you can't do this mentally. So we have 500 times 0.1. That is to say, we're multiplying a whole number by a decimal. In order to do this arithmetic, we're going to shift this decimal in 0.1 one place to the right. So this becomes 500 times 1, albeit with 1 decimal to shift back into the left when we're done. Again, we moved it to the right here. When we're done doing this math, we'll move it back into the left. So 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 5 is 5. Shift that 1 decimal back in so we can see that 500 times 0.1 is 50. So our sales price, in other words, is $450. Okay. We're not done with this problem because now we have to add tax onto this sales price. So how are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to call this next amount we're going to calculate our final sales price, which is going to include the sales price plus tax. So it's going to look like this. Sales price plus the tax amount times the sales price. Okay, and we have all this information too. So final sales price equals sales price. We calculated that to be $450 plus the tax amount. Well, this is always going to be in decimal form as well. we can see that our sales tax is 7%. So in decimal form, that's 0.07. So this is 0.07 times our sales price again, which is 450. All right, so as not to make any mistakes, I'm going to work this 450 times 0.07 off to the side. So we have 450 times 0.07. And as was the case over here, we're multiplying a whole number, notably 450, by a decimal, notably 0.07. To proceed, we're going to shift this decimal 2 times to the right so that this becomes 450 times 7, albeit with 2 decimals to shift back into the left at the end. Again, we shifted them to the right here. We'll shift them to the left when we get done doing this arithmetic involving 2 whole numbers. So let's go ahead and do this. 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 5 is 35, so we're going to drop down a 5 and carry a 3. 4 times 7 is 28, 29, 30, 31. Shift our 2 decimals back in, 1, 2. Okay, so this becomes 450 plus 3150. And I'm going to do that off to the side right here so as not to make mistakes. Again, on the ASVAB, you're going to have scratch paper, so I advise you to use it. And again, we're just trying to find the final sales price, which means we're going to add 450 to 3150. And this is pretty easy to do. We're just adding decimals now. So 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 5 is 5. Drop down your decimal in place. 1 plus 0 is 1. 5 plus 3 is 8. And 4 plus nothing is 4. So we can see our final sales price, including tax as well as the 10% discount, is $481.50. Again, the key to understanding this problem is doing your calculations separately. You're going to apply your discount first to get your first sales price, and then you're going to take your sales price and add your sales tax on to that to get your final sales price. Okay, so kind of an advanced problem, but nothing too difficult once you see it a couple of times. All right, so that's that one. Number 2 says a map has a scale of 3 centimeters corresponds to 18 kilometers. If Riverside and Smithville are 54 kilometers apart, then they are how far apart on the map? So whenever you see a problem involving a scale like this, that should be a clue that you should use a proportion to solve it. And here's what proportions look like in case you haven't seen them in a long time. You have 2 fractions that are equal to each other. And on this left-hand side of the equal sign, I'm going to fill in what's given. According to the problem, we know 3 centimeters corresponds to 18 kilometers. Okay? Likewise, the problem wants us to figure out how far apart they are on the map. Well, we know this centimeters corresponds to the map. And so since that's an unknown value, I'm going to call that x centimeters. And I'm going to fill in this 54 kilometers down here. One thing I should point out is this. I kept my units the same across the equal sign. So I put centimeters in the numerator over here. And as you can see, it's in the numerator over here. Likewise, I put kilometers in the denominator over here. So I also put kilometers in the denominator over here. Now that I've set up this proportion correctly, all we have to do is cross multiply and solve. And the very first thing you want to do when you cross multiply is multiply the unknown variable, that is the x. So this becomes 18 times x, which is 18x, equals 3 times 54. Okay? And I'm going to work this off to the side. In case you can't do it in your head, that's fine. We have 54 times 3. 4 times 3 is 12, so we're going to drop down a 2 and carry a 1. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16. So this is 162 equals 18x. Now we're going to divide both sides by 18 to get x by itself. This is going to cross out. And now we have to do this math right here. This says x equals 162 over 18. If you watch enough of my videos, you'll know that fractions can be treated as long division. And this becomes 162 divided by 18. Now, admittedly, this long division is not that easy to do. So what I'm going to do is look at my answer choices to figure out what this could possibly be. And thankfully enough, they're all uh, whole numbers. There's no decimals or fractions. So we know 18 must go into 162 evenly. Well, 18 times 10 would be 180. And if that's too big, that means 12 and 14 are too big. So by process of elimination, I know 9's correct. But just to confirm that, let's work it off to the side. We have 18 times 9. 9 times 8 is 72. So we're going to drop down a 2 and carry a 7. 9 times 1 is 9 plus 7 is going to be 16. So 18 goes into 162. 9 times 18 times 9, as we just saw, is 162 with no remainder. So the answer to this one is 9. And in case you're wondering where to get your units from, look up here. X corresponded with centimeters, so this is 9 centimeters, which we can see is, in fact, D. Okay, so that's that one. On the ASVAB, you should use proportions a few times to solve a couple of the problems. So make sure you know how to use proportions. In the description of this video, there's going to be a link to my video on proportions. I think it's about an hour long, so check that out if you haven't seen it already. All right. Number 3 says Lisa is 16 years younger than Kathy. The sum of their ages is 30. How old is Lisa? So for these age problems, you're going to have to translate a word problem into an algebraic expression that reflects the problem. So we're told that Lisa is 16 years younger than Kathy. So if Lisa is X years old, that means Kathy is 16 years older than her. So that would be X plus 16. Again, this X, let me fix that real quick. This X corresponds to Lisa's age, whereas this X plus 16 corresponds to Kathy's age. Again, Lisa is X years old, Kathy is 16 years older than her. And we're told, according to the problem, the sum of their ages is 30. All we do is have to solve for x at this point to get our answer. So this becomes x plus x, which is 2x plus 16 equals 30. Again, we're trying to solve for x, so our next step is to subtract 16 from both sides. This becomes 2x equals. This is pretty easy to do mentally. I know a lot of people stink at mental math, but 30 minus 15 would be 15. 30 minus 16, therefore, is 14. Divide both sides by 2. This crosses out, leaving you with x equals 14 over 2, which is 7. So Lisa, in this case, is 7 years old. All right, so that's that one. All right, so number 4 says the width of a rectangle is 23 feet less than the length. If the perimeter of the rectangle is 94 feet, then what are the dimensions of the rectangle? So for this one, I'm going to draw a little diagram to illustrate what's going on here. We know we're dealing with a rectangle, and as you may recall, in rectangles, this length is the same as this length, and likewise this width is the same as this width. We're told, according to the problem, that the width of the rectangle is 23 feet less than the length. So if I let this length be x, that means that this width is x minus 23. That is, it's 23 feet less than its length. And likewise, if this width is x minus 23, that means this side is x minus 23. And if this length is x, that means this length is x. What's more, we know the perimeter, according to this problem, is 94 feet. And the question is, how can we use this information as well as information about the perimeter of this rectangle to figure out its dimensions? Well, in this case, we're going to have to find a way to solve for x, and we're actually going to use the fact that the perimeter can be found by adding up all the sides of a rectangle. And let's go ahead and take a look at that. Again, the perimeter is found by adding up all the sides of the rectangle. So let's start here. We have x minus 23. Let's go here now, plus x. Let's go here now, plus x minus 23. And finally here, we have plus x. Okay, so that's helpful. What's more, we know the perimeter is 94. So in place of this p, I'm going to put 94. So we have 94 equals x minus 23 plus x minus 23 plus x. Okay, now it's very possible to solve for x. And in doing so, we'll be able to figure out how long this rectangle is, as well as how wide this rectangle is. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, we're going to combine like terms here. We have x, 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 and x. So that's 4x. Then we have minus 23 and minus 23. If you can't do that in your head, you can do it off to the side very quickly. 3 plus 3 is 6. 4 plus 2 plus 2 is 4. So this is minus 46. Again, our goal is to solve for x. So the next thing I'm going to do is add 46 to both sides. This crosses out here. And we're left with 4x equals 94 plus 46. Let's work that out. 4 plus 6 is 10. So we're going to bring down a 0 and carry a 1. 9 plus 1 is 10 plus 4 is 14. Okay. So again, we're solving for x, so we're going to divide both sides by 4 now. This is going to cross out, leaving you with x equals 140 divided by 4. If you can't do that in your head, you can regard this as long division. So this is 140 divided by 4. The question becomes, how many times does 4 go into 1? It doesn't. How many times does 4 go into 14? Without going over, that's 2 times, or 3 times. Take that back. Given that 4 times 3 is 12, 14 minus 12 is 2, and we drop down this 0 now. 4 goes into 25 times. 4 times 5, of course, is 20, and we have no remainder. So we can see x is 35. X refers to the length of this rectangle. To find the width, you can see we're going to do x minus 23. So that looks like this, x minus 23. We now know x is 35, so this is 35 minus 23, which is 12. So the answer to this one is the length is 35 and the width is 12, which is answer choice A right here. Okay, so that's that one. All right, number 5 says, in order to get to a water park, a family drove in their car for 2.5 hours at a constant rate of 24 miles per hour. After the water park, they traveled for another 2 hours at a constant speed of 72 miles an hour to visit a relative. How much distance did they travel in total? So let's illustrate what's going on here. So this family started here, let's say, and they drove for 2.5 hours at 24 miles per hour to get to the water park. Okay. After that, they left the water park and drove for another 2 hours at 72 miles per hour to get to to visit a relative. I'll just call that R. So to find how much distance they traveled in total, we're going to split these in half, and we're going to make use of the distance formula. In case you haven't seen that in a while, distance formula describes the relationship between distance, rate, and time. And that's distance equals rate times time. As long as you have rate and time, you can calculate distance. Likewise, if you have distance and rate, you can calculate time. And if you have distance and time, you can calculate rate. In this case, we have a time right here. That's 2.5 hours. And we have a rate right here. So in this case, we're going to be calculating distance. And likewise, here we have a time. And here we have a rate. So we're going to be calculating distance there too. So this is distance equals rate times time. And I'm going to do these separately. And we're trying to solve for distance here. So this becomes distance equals rate. We're told that's 24 miles per hour. And the time is 2.5 hours. I'm going to write that as 2.5 since I don't like working with fractions here. All right, so to find the total distance covered, if they traveled at a rate of 24 miles per hour for 2.5 hours, we're just going to do 24 times 2.5. That is to say, we're going to multiply a whole number by a decimal. As we've seen in this video already, it's going to be easier to shift this decimal one time to the right and do 25 times 24 with no decimals. Once we work that out, we'll shift our decimal back into the left. So 5 times 4 is 20, drop down to 0, carry a 2. 2 times 4 is 8, 9, 10. Before we start multiplication with this second term, we have to add a 0 placeholder. 5 times 2 is 10, so we're going to carry a 1. And 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Let's add these together. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 1 is going to be 6. Bring our one decimal back in. So we can see over here, they went a total distance of 60 miles. Okay. Let's do the same thing over here now. Again, we're using distance equals rate times time. In this case, we know the rate was 72 miles per hour and the time was 2 hours. And again, so as not to make any simple mistakes here, I'm going to work this off to the side, notably 72 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 7 times 2 is 14. Okay, so this distance is 144. So for this first part of the trip, they went 60 miles. For this second part of the trip, they went 144 miles. To find how much they went in total, we'll just add those together. So this becomes 60 plus 144. If you can't do that in your head, you can always work it off to the side. So we have 144 plus 60. We have 0 plus 4, which is 4. 6 plus 4, which is 10. So we're going to drop down to 0 and carry a 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So in total, they went 204 miles. Okay. Distance, rate, and time problems are very common on the ASVAB. As a matter of fact, I always try to include 1 or 2 in all my videos. So I don't know if you picked up on that, but you definitely want to understand this relationship between distance, rate, and time. It enables the people who make the test to ask the question in about 10 or more different ways. So be prepared to see that. All right, number 6 says the cylindrical giant ocean tank at the New England Aquarium in Boston is 24 feet deep. It has a radius of 10 feet. Find the volume of the tank. Use the approximate value of pi. This of should be removed. Of pi and round your answer to the nearest tenth if necessary. So we're dealing with a cylinder in this case. Cylinder kind of looks like this. It has a circular top and a circular bottom. Okay. And according to the problem, this aquarium's 24 feet deep. So in other words, its height is 24 feet. And likewise, it has a radius of 10 feet. Well, the radius of a circle is always the distance from the center point of the circle to the edge of the circle. So we know that in this case is 10 feet. Finding the volume of a cylinder is actually pretty easy, and let me explain why. To find the volume of a cylinder, you find the area of a circular face, and to find the area of a circle, it's always pi r squared. And to find the volume of a cylinder, you find the area of the circular face, and you multiply it by height, and just like that, you can find the volume of a cylinder. Again, if you can find the area of a circle, you can find the volume of a cylinder. So let's go ahead and plug in what we have. We have pi, r is right here. It's 10 feet, so this is 10 squared times a height of 24. Let's keep working this out. We have pi. 10 squared is the same as 10 times 10, so this becomes 100 times 24. This is pi. 100 times 24 is actually pretty easy to do. And let me do that up here just to illustrate that. We have 24 times 100. That is to say, we're multiplying a whole number by a number that's a power of 10. Powers of 10 are numbers such as 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, and so on. And whenever you multiply a whole number or decimal by a power of 10, the math's very easy to do. Again, in 24, technically there's a decimal right here. And what you want to do is you want to shift it to the right according to how many zeros there are in the power of 10. In 100, there are 2 zeros. So we're going to shift our decimal 2 times to the right and fill in zeros. So 100 times 24 is 2,400. Okay? So now we're going to use the approximate value of pi to finish this. This becomes 3.14. Again, pi is approximated by 3.14 times 2,400. And by working that out, we'll solve this one. I'm going to need some more space to do this one, so let's go ahead and work that out down here. We have 2,400 times 3.14. That is to say we're multiplying a whole number by a decimal, and as we've seen in this video, we want to take that decimal place and shift it 2 times to the right to get rid of it. So this becomes 2,400 times 314, albeit with those 2 decimals to shift back into the left at the end when we're done. So let's work this one out. It's going to take a while since we're multiplying by a 3-digit integer down here. So 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 4 is 16, so we're going to carry a 1. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Before we start multiplication with this 1, we have to add a 0 placeholder. Now we can proceed. 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 4 is 4, 1 times 2 is 2. Before we start multiplication with this 3, which is in the 3rd spot down here, we have to add 2 0 placeholders now. 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 4 is 12, carry a 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Let's add these together now. 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 0, 6 plus 0 plus 0 is 6, 9 plus 4 is 13, carry a 1, 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, and 7 plus nothing is 7. Let's bring our 2 decimals back in, 1, 2. So we can see the volume in this case is going to be 7,536 feet cubed. And of course, cubes always go with volume, whereas squares always go with area. So let's see if that is the correct answer choice. It is. It's A right here. So 7,536. Nothing too difficult here, just a lot of tedious math, which you'll experience on the ASVAB. So better get used to it. All right. Number 7 says a truck tire has a diameter of 60 inches. How far does the truck travel along the ground when its wheel rotates once? Let's go ahead and draw a circle here to represent the wheel. And we know, according to the problem, it has a diameter of 60 inches. Well, diameter is defined as the distance from one edge of the circle to the other edge of the circle and through the center point of the circle. So that line I just drew right there is the diameter. And we know it is 60 inches according to the problem. So we have to determine how we can figure out what this relationship between the rotation of this circle is and the distance the truck travels along the ground. Well, as far as circles go, we should know that there are 2 basic formulas with circles. There's the area formula and the circumference formula. The area formula tells you the area enclosed by the circle, whereas the circumference formula tells you the distance it takes to go around the circle. Well, imagine this circle was a string and you cut it right here and then you laid that string out in a straight line. Well, that would tell you how long this truck traveled when its wheel rotated once. So in this case, we're going to make use of the circumference formula, and that's given by 2 formulas. It's either circumference equals 2 pi r or circumference equals pi times diameter. In this case, we were given diameter, so we're just going to use circumference equals pi times diameter. But that said, there's a little bit of a problem here. Whereas our diameter is given in terms of inches, our answer choices are given in terms of feet. In 1 foot, there are 12 inches. 60 divided by 12 is 5. So 60 inches is the same as 5 feet. So instead of writing 60 inches in as my diameter, I'm going to use the equivalent of 5 feet. So this becomes circumference equals pi times 5. Again, 5 feet is the same as 60 inches. And as you saw in the previous problem, you're always going to approximate pi with 3.14 or 22 over 7. If you have to use 22 over 7, the problem will usually specify that. So this becomes 3.14 times 5. And now this is a nice, easy problem to work on. Again, we're doing a decimal, 3.14 times a whole number, that's 5. So we're going to shift this decimal in 3.14 2 times to the right to make this 314 times 5, albeit with 2 decimals to shift back into the left at the end. 5 times 4 is 20, carry a 2. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. 3 times 5 is 15. Shift our 2 decimals back in. So we can see that this is 15.7 feet. The circumference of this circle is 15.7 feet, which means that when you cut it and lay it out as a straight line, this wheel covers 15.7 feet upon one rotation. So the answer to this one is A, 15.7 feet. All right, number 8 says Jenny's test grades are 93, 89, 96, and 98. If she wishes to raise her average to 95, what does she need to score on her next test? So this is a fairly common question that shows up on the ASVAB. You'll be asked to find a missing value when you're given the average as well as a couple of data points. So again, to find the mean or average, you always sum the numbers you're given and you divide by how many numbers there are. Well, in this case, we know what the average has to be. We want an average of 95. So in place of average, I'm going to put 95. Let's go ahead and sum the numbers that were given. We have 93 plus 89 plus 96 plus 98. And we want to know, according to the problem, what she has to score on the next test to have an average of 95. So that value is unknown. So I'm going to call it X. And again, average is sum of the numbers, which we have here, including the unknown one, divided by how many numbers there are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By working this out, we can figure out what X is. So the very first thing I want to do is get rid of this 5 from the denominator, which is going to prompt me to multiply both sides by 5. This will cross out here, leaving me with 93 plus 89 plus 96 plus 98 plus X equals 95 times 5. Well, if you can't do that in your head, you can work it off to the side here. So this is 95 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25, carry a 2. 9 times 5 is 45, 46, 47. So this is 475 equals 93 plus 89 plus 96 plus 98 plus X. We're solving for X, so we want to move all these whole numbers to the other side. Prior to doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and combine them to make the math a little bit easier. And I'm going to do that vertically so as not to make any mistakes. We have 93, 89, 96, 98. Take your time as you do this. This is where most people, including me, make mistakes, so just bear with me here. We have 6 plus 3, which is 9. 9 plus 9 is 18. And 18 plus 8, well, that's going to be 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Okay, so we're going to drop down a 6, carry a 2. We have 9 times 9 times 9. 9 times 3 is 27. We have 8 times 2, or 8 plus 2, which is 10. So this is 27 plus 10, which is going to be 37. So all this is 376. So this is 376 plus x equals 475. Starting to write crooked here, so just bear with me. Our next step is to subtract 376 from both sides. This crosses out here, leaving you with just x. And we have 475 minus 376. Let's go ahead and work this out. 5 minus 6 we can't do, so we're going to have to borrow. This is going to become 6. This is going to become 15. 15 minus 6 is 9. 6 minus 7 we can't do, so we have to borrow. This becomes 3. This becomes 16. 16 minus 7 is 9. 3 minus 3 is nothing. So we can see x equals 99. And let me write that over here. X equals 99. This means that in order to have a 95 average in her class, Jenny has to score a 99 on her fifth test, which is answer choice C here. Okay, again, a very common question that shows up. All right, number 9 says, Tucker used 10 2/9 of an inch of string to tie a parcel and another 5 1/4 of an inch of string to tie a box. If he started with 20 inches, how much string does he have left? So in this case, we're going to take 20 inches, which is the amount of string with which he started. We're going to subtract the 10 2/9 inches he used to tie a parcel, as well as the 5 1/4 inch he used to tie the box. So as you can see, we're doing subtraction involving a whole number as well as two mixed numbers. So the very first thing we want to do is convert these all to fractions. So to write 20 as a fraction, we're simply going to place it over 1. So 20 is the same as 20 over 1. To write this mixed number as a fraction, we do 10 times 9, which is 90 plus 2. So this is 92 over 9. Then we have 5 times 4, which is 20, plus 1, so this is 21 over 4. The key to subtracting fractions is to rewrite them such that they all have the same denominators or bases. In this case, we have denominators of 1, 9, and 4. So again, we want to rewrite these fractions such that they have the same bases. The easiest way to do that is to write them all over 36, since 9 and 4 have a common factor of 36. All right, so to write 1 as 36, you just multiply it by 36. Again, 1 times 36 is 36. We're also going to have to do that to its numerator. So this is going to become 20 times 36. And let's work this out. Again, you're supposed to multiply with the bigger number on top, so this should really be 36 times 20. 6 times 0 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. Before we start multiplication with this second term, we have to add another 0. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry a 1. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7. So this is 0 plus 720, which is 720. So this is 720 over 36. To write 9 as 36, we have to multiply it by 4. And likewise, we're also going to have to do that to its numerator. Again, 9 times 4 is 36. Now we have 92 times 4 to work out. 2 times 4 is 8. 9 times 4 is 36. So this is 368 here. And then finally, we have to write 4 as 36. So we're going to multiply it by 9. 4 times 9 is 36. Now we have to do 21 times 9 here. 9 times 1 is 9. 2 times 9 is 18. So this is 189. All right, now that these fractions all have the same denominator or bases, this is what they become. They become one big fraction like this, 720 minus 368 minus 189. And I'm going to combine these two real quickly to make the math a little bit easier. So again, I'm going to add 368 to 189. 8 plus 9 is 17, so we're going to carry a 1. Uh, 6 plus 8 is 14, plus 1 is 15, carry a 1. 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So this becomes 720 minus 557 over 36. Let's go ahead and work that out now. We have 720 minus 5. Did I say 556? I meant 557. All right, let's work that out. We have 0 minus 7, which we can't do, so we're going to have to borrow. This is going to become 1. This is going to become 10. 10 minus 7 is 3. 1 minus 5 we can't do, so we have to borrow. This becomes 6. This becomes 11. 11 minus 5 is 6, and 6 minus 5 is 1. So this becomes 163 over 36. That is to say, and let me scroll down a little bit, if I can get this thing to come up here. Let me scroll down a little bit so we can have some room to work with here. Now we have 163 over 36. That is to say, we have to do this long division. Well, this math might be a little bit hard to do, but that said, I know that we can estimate this one pretty quickly. So let's pull this off to the side. We have 163 divided by 36. Well, if I rounded this 36 up to 40, 40 times 4 would be 160. So I'm going to say 36 goes into 163 about 4 times without going over. Again, if this was 30 times 5, it would be 150. So 5 is probably going to be too big. So let's go ahead and work this out. We have 36 times 4. 6 times 4 is 24. Carry a 2. 3 times 4 is 12. 13, 14. So this is 144. So we're going to go 36 times 4 is 144. Again, if you did 36 times 5, this would be bigger than 163. So let's do this subtraction here. 3 minus 4 we can't do, so we're going to have to borrow. This is going to become 5, and this is going to become 13. 13 minus 4 is 9. 5 minus 4 is 1, and 1 minus nothing is nothing. And now we have enough to write this long division as a mixed number. Here's our whole number, so it's going to be 4. This is the numerator of our mixed number, so it's 19, and this is the denominator, 36. 19 is a prime number, so you can't reduce it, so this becomes 4 and 19 over 36. That is to say, this is how much string Tucker has left after tying that box in the parcel. So this one is D 4 1936 inches. Okay. All right, number 10 says for $15, Chelsea can get a pizza with a diameter of 16 inches or 2 pizzas with diameters of 8 inches each. Which is the better deal? So in other words, we want to figure out if this one pizza with a 16-inch diameter has a bigger area than the 2 pizzas with 8-inch diameters. So it's going to look like this. We have our one pizza that has a 16-inch diameter. And again, diameter is the distance from one edge of the circle to the other edge of the circle and through the center point of the circle, versus these smaller pizzas, both of which have 8-inch diameter. So 8 inches there and 8 inches there. All right, so we're finding the area. So area equals pi r squared. And we're going to find the combined area of both of these. So it's going to be area equals pi r squared. That's the area of this one, plus pi r squared. That's the area of this one. You could have done 2 times pi r squared, but there's multiple ways to write this one out. Again, we're trying to figure out what the radius is for r. Radius is always diameter over 2. That is to say, the radius is always half the distance of the diameter. So 16 over 2 would be 8. That means this is going to be area equals pi times 8 squared. And likewise, we can see that this one has a diameter of 8. Half of 8 is 4, so we know the radius in both of these cases is 4 inches. So this becomes area equals pi. Again, we have a radius of 4 squared plus pi radius. Let me write 4 in there. 4 squared. All right, let's keep working these out. And we're not going to have to approximate pi. And I'll show you why in just a second. This becomes area equals 8 squared is 64. So this is 64 pi. This one is 4 squared, so 16 pi plus, same thing over here, 16 pi. 16 plus 16 is 32 pi. The question is 64 pi bigger than 32 pi? Well, of course 64 pi is bigger than 32 pi. So in other words, she's going to get the most area or most amount of pizza if she just gets the 16-inch pizza. So the 16-inch pizza is the better deal in this case. Okay, and again, you didn't have to work out pi. Right here, you have enough to say 64 pi is bigger than 32 pi. Again, pi is just 3.14, so this would be like 64 times 3, 32 times 3. Well, 64 times 3 is bigger than 32 times 3. So that's that one. All right, so number 11 says if a school gymnasium is 45 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 14 feet high, and the school is painting its 4 walls and the ceiling of the gym, how much area of the gym is being painted? So it should be obvious that we're dealing with a rectangular prism in this case, which looks like this. And what's more, we know it has a length of 45 feet, so let's label that. That's 45 feet right there. It has a width of 30 feet, and it has a height of 14 feet. In this case, we're finding the area of all the walls, the ceiling, but not the floor. Chances are it's like a hardwood floor. So the very first thing we want to do is find the area of the side walls here. Again, these mirror each other, so they're equivalent. So I'm going to call that area of the yellow space that I highlighted there is going to be the area of one of them times 2, since there's 2 of them. So this one is height times width, and we know what those values are. It's going to be 2. The height is 14 times the width, which is 30. So as not to make any mistakes, I'm going to go ahead and work this off to the side. We have 30 times 14. 4 times 0 is 0. 3 times 4 is 12. Before we start multiplication with this 1, we have to bring in a 0 placeholder. 1 times 0 is 0. 3 times 1 is 3. Let's add these together. This is 120 plus 300, which is going to be 420. So this is 2 times 420. And again, in case you can't do that in your head, let's go ahead and work it off to the side. 2 times 4. Not like that, though. Like this. 420 times 2. 0 times 2 is 0. 2 times 2 is 4. And 4 times 2 is 8. So the area of the yellow space is 840 feet squared. All right, let's find the area of the ceiling now, and that's going to be pretty easy to do. Again, here's our ceiling. We're going to find the area of that next. Again, we don't have to double that because we're not finding the area of the floor. Again, that's not going to be painted. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to do it over here. Area of the green space is going to be, and again, we know right here is the same as here. So this is 30 feet. And likewise, we know right here is the same as here. So this is 45. So the area of the green space is going to be length times width, which is 45 times 30. And so as not to make a mistake, let's go ahead and work that off to the side as well. We have 45 times 30. 5 times 0 is 0. 4 times 0 is 0. Before we start multiplication with this 3, we have to add in a 0 placeholder. 5 times 3 is 15. Carry a 1. 4 times 3 is 12 plus 1 is 13. So the area of the roof, or this green space, is just 1350 feet squared. And finally, we have to find the area of this front wall as well as this back wall. Right, so the only thing left to figure out is the area of this front wall and this back wall. And since that's white, I'll call it area of the white space. And that's going to be twice, since there's two of them. And we can see it's going to be this uh, length here. So it's going to be length times height. Okay, so let's figure that out. We have 2 times length is 45 times the height, that's 14. All right, let's keep working that out. 45 times 14, let's do that off to the side. 5 times 4 is 20, so bring down a 0, carry a 2. 4 times 4 is 16, 17, 18. Before we start multiplication with this one, we have to bring in a 0 placeholder. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 4 is 4. Let's add these together. 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 8, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Carry a 1. 1 plus 1 is 2 plus 4 is 6. Again, this is 2 times 6, 30. And in case you can't do this in your head, that's going to be 630 times 2. 0 times 2 is 0. 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 times 2 is 12. So this is 1260 feet squared. So now that we found the area of the yellow space, the ceiling, and the front and back walls, we're just going to go ahead and add those together. We're going to add this one, and this one. And that should give us our total. Let me go ahead and move down to do that, but not that far down. We have 1350, 1260, and 840. So the total area that's being painted is going to be these three combined. 0 plus 0 is 0. 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 5 is 15. Carry a 1. 8 plus 2 is 10, plus 4 is 14. Carry a 1. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. So in total, 3,450 feet squared are going to be painted. Kind of a difficult problem because there's a lot of tedious math, but nothing too difficult. Again, this wall, the ceiling, and the front and back walls, and that's pretty much it. All right, number 12 says, what is the original price of an apple if you got a 20% discount and paid 96 cents for it? So in this one, we're going to make use of something I discussed for the very first problem. Again, to find the sales price, you would take the original cost, or the original amount, minus the discount rate times the original amount. Well, in this case, we know what the sales price is. You got a discount and paid 96 cents for this apple. So the sales price was 96 cents. We don't know what the original amount is. That's what we're trying to figure out. So I'm going to call that X since it's currently unknown. That said, we know what the discount rate was. You got a discount of 20%. So in decimal form, that's 0.2. So this becomes 0.2 times, again, the original amount is that for which we're trying to solve. And again, we represented it with X. So it's going to be X over here as well. All right, a lot of people get stuck right here. Let me just point this out. There's technically a 1 here, so this becomes 0.96 equals 1x minus 0.2x. And if it's helpful, you can think about this as dollars and cents. You have $1 minus 20 cents. Dollar minus 20 cents is 80 cents. So this becomes 96 cents equals 0.80x. And again, we don't have to express this 0, so this is just 0.8x. All right, let me rewrite that so it's not as bad looking. So this is 0.8x equals 0.96. Again, we're solving for x because we want to know the original price, or the original amount of the apple. So our next step is to divide both sides by 0.8. This crosses out here, leaving you with just x on this side. And as you can see, x equals 0.96 divided by 0.8. That is to say, we're doing long division involving two decimals. As far as long division involving decimals goes, as long as the decimal's inside the division bracket, you can proceed as you normally would. That said, we have a decimal outside this division bracket. So we're going to have to clear or get rid of this decimal outside the division bracket. And to do that, we're going to shift it one place to the right. And to keep proportionality, I'm going to shift the decimal inside the division bracket a corresponding number of times. So this really becomes 9.6 divided by 8. And now that we have our decimal here, we can go ahead and bring it up. Once we bring up that decimal, we're no longer treating this like 9.6. This is now 96, so disregard the decimal. Now the question is, how many times does 8 go into 9 without going over? That's one time, given that 8 times 1 is 8. 9 minus 8 is 1, and we drop down this 6 now. 8 goes into 16 two times without going over. 8 times 2 is 16, so we can see there's no remainder. So we can see x equals 1.2. In math, it's customary to write the variable for which you solved on the left. So this is x equals 1.2, which is the same as $1.20. So in other words, this apple originally cost $1.20. All right, so that's that one. And let me scroll a little better so we can see this one, this next one. All right, number 13 says, during boot camp, recruits spend a quarter of their time eating and sleeping, 3/5 of their time training, and 1/12 of their time studying. If the rest is free time, what fraction of their time is considered free time? So again, we're going to take 1, which is, and let me make that a little bit smaller. We're going to take 1 and subtract from it all the time they spend doing these other tasks. And when we do that, we'll figure out how much free time they have in a day. So this is going to be 1 day minus a quarter of their day eating and sleeping minus 3/5 of their day training minus 1/12 of their day studying. Okay. So in this case, we're doing subtraction involving fractions. What we want to do is write this 1 as a fraction. And as I've mentioned in this video already, you can write anything as a fraction by placing it over 1. So 1 is the same as 1 over 1. So this is 1 over 1 minus 1/4 minus 3/5 minus 1/12. In order to subtract fractions, they all have to have the same denominator. So we have to find a common denominator between 1, 2, 3, 4, between 4, 5, and 12. Well, how about 60? Is 60 divisible by 4? Let's see if it is. 4 goes into 6 one time without going over. 4 times 1 is 4. 6 minus 4 is 2. Drop down this 0. 4 goes into 25 times. So 60 is divisible by 4. 5 times 12 is 60. So both 5 and 12 go into 60 as well. So we're going to rewrite these fractions such that they have denominators of 60. To write 1 as 60, we multiply it by 60. We're going to also do that to its numerator. Again, 1 times 60 is 60. 60 times 1 is 60. So 1 is the same as 60 over 60. As I just worked out over here, to write 4 as 60, we multiply it by 15. We're also going to do that to its numerator. 4 times 15 is 60. 15 times 1 is 15. To write 5 as 60, we're going to multiply it by 12. Again, 5 times 12 is 60. We're also going to do that to its numerator. 3 times 12 is 36. And finally, to write 12 as 60, we're going to multiply it by 5. 12 times 5 is 60. 1 times 5 is 5. Let's go ahead and move down a little bit here. Now that these fractions all have the same denominator, we can make one big fraction like this, where we do 60 minus 15 minus 36 minus 5. And again, I'm going to combine all these right here into one term. So this is going to be 15, 36, and 5. 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 6 is 16. So drop down a 6 and carry a 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 3 is 5. So this is 60 minus 56 over 60. Let's go ahead and work this out. 60 minus 56 is going to be 4 over 60. And as we saw, uh, both 4 and 60 have a common factor of 4. So we can reduce this by dividing the numerator and denominator by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 60 divided by 4 is 15. So in other words, they have 1/15 of their day for free time. Okay, so that's that one. Pretty challenging, but again, it's just fractions, so nothing too difficult there. All right. Number 14 says a carpenter earns $12.30 an hour for a 40-hour work week. His overtime pay is 1.5 times his base pay. If he puts in a 46-hour work week, how much is his weekly pay? Okay, so for this one, we have to realize that he's going to get paid $12.30 for the 40 hours that he works. And then he worked 6 hours of overtime. So for those 6 hours of overtime, he's going to make 1.5 times his pay. Well, that's going to be 1.5 times 12.30. So we need to figure out what that is to find his overtime rate of pay. So that's going to be 12.30 times, we can regard this as a fraction if we want, but 1/2 is the same as 0.5. So 1.5 is the same as 1.5. So this is times 1.5. By multiplying 12.30 by 1.5, or 1.5, we'll figure out what his overtime rate of pay is. So let's work this out. Again, we're multiplying 2 decimals here, so we want to get rid of those decimals temporarily. So we're going to shift the decimal in 12.30 2 times to the right, and the decimal in 1.5 1 time to the right. In total, we move the decimal place 3 times. This becomes this times this, albeit with those 3 decimals to move back into the left at the end when we're done. So 0 times 5 is 0. 3 times 5 is 15. Carry a 1. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. Carry a 1. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. We're going to add a 0 placeholder before we start multiplication here. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. Let's add these together. 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 0 is 5. 3 plus 1 is 4. 6 plus 2 is 8. And 1 plus nothing is 1. Bring in our 3 decimals. 1, 2, 3. So we can see that his overtime rate of pay is $18.45. All right, so to find out how much he made in total for the week, we're going to take his hourly rate, multiply it by 40, and then we're going to take his overtime rate and multiply it by 6. Again, he worked 6 hours of overtime. And then once we find those, we'll add those two amounts together. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, take your time as you do this. This is where people make mistakes. In this case, we're multiplying a decimal by a whole number. So what we want to do is shift this decimal 2 times to the right to make this. And once we work this out, we'll shift those 2 decimals back into the left. So we have 0 times 0, 3 times 0, 2 times 0, and 1 times 0, which is all 0. Before we start multiplication with this 4, we're going to add a 0 placeholder. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 3 is 12. Carry a 1. 2 times 4 is 8. Plus 1 is 9. And 4 times 1 is 4. Let's add these together. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 2 plus 0 is 2. 9 plus 0 is 9. 4 plus nothing is 4. Bring our two decimals back in. So we can see for the week, excluding his overtime, he made $492. Okay. Let's do the same thing to find his pay for his overtime hours. Again, we're multiplying a decimal by a whole number, so we're going to shift that decimal 2 times to the right to make it this. And once we work that out, we're going to take those 2 decimals and shift them back into the left. 5 times 6 is 30, so we're going to drop down a 0 and carry a 3. 4 times 6 is 24, 25, 26, 27, carry a 2. 8 times 6 is 48, 49, 50, drop down a 0 and carry a 5. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 5 is 11, bring in our 2 decimals. So this is 110.70, and that's how much he made for overtime. And again, we're going to combine these two amounts to figure out how much he made for the week in total. And let's do that over here. We have 492 plus 110.70. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 7 is 7. Drop down your decimal. 2 plus 0 is 2. 9 plus 1 is 10. Carry your 1. 4 plus 1 is 5 plus 1 is 6. So in total, he made $602.70 for the week, which is answer choice C. All right, number 15 says Carl is driving in Germany where the speed limit is posted in kilometers per hour. The car speedometer shows that he's traveling at a rate of 75 kilometers per hour. Carl knows that a kilometer is about 5/8 of a mile. Approximately how many miles per hour is Carl traveling? So we want to convert kilometers per hour to miles per hour. And we're told that kilometers is approximately 5/8 of a mile. So this is just going to be 75 times 5/8. As you can see, we're multiplying a whole number, notably 75, by a fraction, notably 5/8. To proceed, it's going to be helpful to write 75 as a fraction as well by placing it over 1. Now that we've done that, we can just multiply straight across. So this becomes 75 times 5 over 1 times 8. 1 times 8, of course, is just 8. And we can work all out 75 times 5 off to the side here. 5 times 5 is 25, so carry a 2. 7 times 5 is 35, 36, 37. So this is 375 over 8. Now we have to perform this long division here. So this is 375 divided by 8. And the question becomes, how many times does 8 go into 3? It doesn't. How many times does 8 go into 37 without going over? Well, 8 times 4 is 32, whereas 8 times 5 is 40. So this is going to be 4. 8 times 4 is 32. 37 minus 32 is going to be 5. And now we're going to drop down this 5 here. Now the question is, how many times does 8 go into 55 without going over? Well, 8 times 7 is 56, and 8 times 6 is 48. So this is going to be 6. 8 times 6 is 48. 55 minus 48. Let's work that out. 5 minus 8 we can't do. We have to borrow. This becomes 4. This becomes 15. 15 minus 8 is going to be 7. And 4 minus 4 is nothing. To proceed, we're going to have to add a decimal here and a 0 placeholder. We're going to bring that decimal up here, and we're going to drop down that 0 here. And the question becomes, how many times does 8 go into 70 without going over? Well, 8 times 8 is 64, and that's about as close as we can get. So we're going to do 8 up there. 70 minus 64 is 6. And this is enough to answer the question. Again, we wanted to approximate our answer, and our approximate answer is 46.8. And it looks as if they rounded the answer to the nearest mile per hour, which is right there. So we're going to look at this 6. More specifically, we're going to look to the right of it. If the number to the right of it is 5 or greater, we round up. If it's 4 or below, we keep it the same. 8 is greater than 5, so this becomes 47 miles per hour, which is answer choice A. Okay, so that's that one. All right, number 16 says a train headed south from Wichita left the station at the same time. A train headed north from Des Moines left the same station. The train headed to Wichita traveled 55 miles per hour. The train headed for Des Moines traveled at 70 miles per hour. How many miles apart are the trains at the end of 3 hours? So let's illustrate what's going on here. We have one train going southbound to Wichita, and it is traveling at 55 miles per hour. And then we have another train that leaves the same station at the same time going northbound to Des Moines, and it's going 70 miles per hour. And we want to know how far apart, or we want to know what the distance of this is after they travel for a period of 3 hours. Okay? So it may be obvious that we have all the elements of the distance formula. Again, the distance formula describes the relationship between distance, rate, and time. More specifically, it says distance equals rate times time. In this case, we have our time right here. Again, we're told they travel for 3 hours. We have one rate right here and another rate right here, and we want to figure out their distance. So this is going to be distance, and in this case, our rate is going to look like this. It's going to be R1 plus R2 times time, and time was 3 hours. Okay? And again, we have to account for the fact that they're traveling at different speeds. So our rate right here, in other words, is going to be the combined rate of both of the trains. So this becomes distance equals R1 was 70 plus R2 was 55 times 3. Let's keep working this out. If you want to do this off to the side, you can. We have 70 and 55. 0 plus 5 is 5. 7 plus 5, that's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So they're traveling at a combined rate of 125 miles per hour times 3. And if you want to work that off to the side, you can as well. We have 125 times 3. 5 times 3 is 15, carry a 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And 3 times 1 is 3. So these two trains, which are headed in the opposite direction, one north and one south, traveled a total distance of 375 miles from one another in a period of 3 hours. So the answer to this one, as we can see, is B. Again, we just used the distance formula, and we just combined their rates to fit into the distance formula. In this video, you saw two problems involving the distance formula, and that's for a reason. Again, the ASVAB likes to test your knowledge of the relationship between distance, rate, and time, so make sure you understand how to solve problems involving that. And that is it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. I don't know if you could tell, but as I was working out these problems, I started getting a little tired myself. And that's how you're going to feel after you take the ASVAB. You're going to feel like you just got hit by a train. So that's normal. As always, you're more than welcome to leave feedback in the comments section below. If you like the content I'm creating, please consider subscribing to my channel. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and cut you loose. Konnichiwa.